I find that Danish culture a lot, maybe it's stereotypical, but they're not as big risk takers. Most are not willing to take risk because you have like
Okay.
it's also very much the culture of like you have the healthcare system, you
Yeah,
have
I
the
know.
safety net of the
I know.
ACAS and everything, right? So
Yeah.
you there's always like some system that you can rely on, like
Okay.
a
Yeah.
backup. And if you go abroad, it's really it makes you feel uncomfortable. They like familiarity.
In 2025, I spent like around 3 months in Denmark, and it was part of a bigger plan. Like, okay, spending an entire year, because that was the reality. I spent like the entire 2025 in Scandinavia, moving from one city to another and spending like roughly 3 months in Denmark, as I said before, three in Norway and three in Sweden, with the concept to explore as much as possible about what life really looks like. Okay, so I spent like literally a big amount of time, rather than a tourist, for example, in Denmark. So the following question is, do I feel in the position to talk about the life and the society, how to navigate the system in Denmark? Easy answer, of course, no. But that was the reason why I decided to search for different type of contacts in many different fields, from teachers to investors to psychotherapists or engineers, just to cover as much as possible the different fields and the different sectors of that compose basically a society, an entire society that was conducted with a specific goal. Basically, I would like to explore if the common narrative, the standard narrative that everyone knows about Denmark, about the fact that, oh, okay, it's a fantastic country where the society is like one of the happiest in the world, and everything basically works like smoothly and perfectly. And I would like to see if this matches with the reality, you know. And in today's episode, we're talking about one thing that basically impacts the lives of everyone, I would say, because we're talking about the work system. So how to find a job, how to navigate the system. So I had a chat with a career consultant for international, because at the very beginning my project was more about expanding this type of strategic approach, not just to Denmark, but to many different countries in the world. Then I had a sort of a brainstorming phase, and then this project has sort of shifting into a different type of focus. But this is not the right time to talk about it. I will probably in the future produce a specific video about the entire process of like spending 1 year in Scandinavia. But apart of that, I had to start with a specific note before moving to the interview. So the audio that you just listened a few seconds before is directly connected to what I'm saying right now, because we're talking about a country that is super safe. And so the fact is that who wants to abandon a system that guaranteed to you all these type of benefits? Basically no one, I would say. So the fact is that once you create your own network in that type of place, it's very hard, or it costs you a lot to decide intentionally, I would say, to move from that place to another place. So to go in abroad and try to restart once again from scratch. It's very complex for them, I would say. And so it's much easier for, I don't know, maybe other people that decide to move abroad and start a new career in another place, because they basically have less thing to lose. And I was surprised. I was literally surprised to listen a very different story from many different people about the fact that most of the time Danes, so native ones, that decided in the past to move abroad to start a new career, and now they decided to come back, they could face a very tough time to to re-enter in the job environment. You build bridges, you build connection, links, an internal structure, and just because it's a very small country, you have your own links that once they are broken, it's very hard for you to reconnect. You have to think that it might take time, it might take a lot of effort for you, even if you are speaking Danish, even if you're native. If you're a foreigner, or if you have been away for several years, so it means that you are a local one, and you want to come back, of course, I hope that this interview could represent like a sort of a starting point to understand from the scratch how it works, the job market, and all the culture around it. And if you need more help, of course, I will leave you in the description all the contacts, all the information about the consultant career that I interviewed. How long does it take, the entire process, for a foreigner to be, I don't know, at some point find, okay, I have a position, I'm now currently employed?
I would say 6 to 12 months is the average.
Ooh, okay.
It can take a while because it's also a lot of internationals when they come here. Let's say their partner is recruited, right, within a company. They come to, let's say, Danfoss, for example, and then their partner, because their partner is also educated, they think, oh, well, my partner got recruited here, I can get a job too. And that's
Okay,
not,
yeah.
and they don't understand that it doesn't work quite that way.
Yeah.
It might be really, really tough for them because maybe they're in a different field or area.
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to job search in the Danish cultural context, because how you do it in Italy is very different than how you do it in Denmark.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know?
For
Like,
sure.
like for example, it's expected to call or to like send an email, for example, before applying. Not always, but it's there, and you should really try to make the effort to sell yourself and ask relevant questions. I mean, you don't really do that in other countries, right? I mean, I've had clients who have never called and still got positions right after training them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have called and it definitely helped. Sometimes they've just emailed or sent a LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is also really, really big here.
Okay.
As well, like huge, like in
Is the
Denmark.
main platform, or there are other?
There are different platforms. Like the biggest platform is Job Index.
Okay.
Jobindex.dk,
Yeah.
that's like the biggest platform. There is also like portals depend on it depends on your industry as well. So
Yeah.
if you want to go be a high school teacher, for example, then you go to gymnasiumjob.dk,
Yeah.
and that would be the right portal for you. Or maybe it would be like work in Denmark. They have a lot more IT and engineering positions that are available.
Okay.
If it's general, you can use Job Index, but like if it's on Job Index, it's likely on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. And
So-
there is no problem. I mean, you can relate easily via LinkedIn, for instance. You can also relate easily with, I don't know, maybe the HR manager, or asking some question before applying, or...
It's usually a hiring manager. Like you talk directly to your future boss.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the time.
Before applying?
Before applying.
Okay.
It's that or an HR or a recruiter. It depends, right? And every process is different. So like it could sometimes, like I said, sometimes they do not. And if you're not able to contact them, like I always say, just apply. Like just
Okay,
go
yeah,
for
sure.
it, right? And then there's the interview process, and it does depend. And it depends on how long it takes. It could be a month. It could be 2 months. I've known sometimes
sure.
it's 3 when it comes to an interview process. It really just depends on the seniority, especially if it's like C-level, right? So it can also take some time as well. So, and then you just and then like once you get the contract and everything, then you have to just agree on a date, and then you start, essentially, right?
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So that's like, and then it also depends like the length of how long it takes for a job also depends on when you start searching.
Okay.
Actually, because high season is normally between end of January to May when they have the positions out, but there's also a lot of holidays in the spring in Denmark.
Okay, yeah.
So then when you have a lot of holidays, the process also might be very slow, right?
Yeah.
And then also like things ramp up again around end of August to like end of November.
Ooh,
and we
okay.
don't and then there's no holidays really.
No.
Except like there's there's like sometimes there's the winter holiday here.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
like fall holiday. So there's maybe that 1 week, but it's just not as many small
No,
holidays
no.
like you do in the
As in
spring.
spring, yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
So it really just depends on and also like, and then like Christmas is slow again, right? So, and summer is slow too because everyone's on vacation. That's why I say it's always important to build your network, because once you've built a network and then you let your network know and say, hey, I sent an application, then it's more likely that they're going to look at it. Once you've built that, right? So that's why I say like the traditional way of unsolicited applications doesn't work.
Okay, but enter in this kind of circle about the network is it could be easy or sometimes it's tough.
It can be tough if you don't know how to go about it. If you're
Okay.
just going and shooting blindly and sending messages, right? If you're just to go and like say like, "Hi, I'm looking for a job. Please help me," that's not going to work. You have,
Okay, yeah, sure.
You know, so it's just about like when you're networking, it's always about gaining insight and knowledge, right? It's about finding information that's not publicly out there on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, for example, about like the team. Maybe you find out like, you know, let's take example, I know like within the finance sector or like banking or within gas trading, they have the culture, or there's a pretty big culture of doing like Counter-Strike competitions together.
Okay.
And doing that as like a team building activity.
Yeah.
And so like if you don't know that information, you can just ask them, you know, like I want to learn more about the company and hear about your experiences because, you know, I've read about the company website, but I would like to hear from someone else and from your experiences,
Yeah.
understand more about like the team dynamics and what kind of team building activities you do. Just talking about these questions. Do you have time for coffee? My treat.
What are the main things that a curriculum must have? I mean, for presenting yourself in the best way. There is a specific method for, you know,
Okay.
highlight as best your potential.
Yeah. So it's really about when you send a CV, what's most important is that you are concise, explicit, direct, straight to the point. No, like rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns and all this, right?
Okay.
So you need to make it easy for them to read because they only take like 8 seconds, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
you really need to like be concise. And so normally how a structure for like a CV would be like a personal profile or summary. The difference between like a summary is that it's a little bit more general, whereas a personal profile in Denmark is a mix of your technical skills and your soft skills.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of like when they say personal, they want to see a little bit more of your personality because it's not always about skills.
Yeah, sure.
It's also about if you're the right fit for the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And talking about the soft skills, which are the main one that are, I don't know, maybe the HR team or responsible are in search for?
Definitely balancing teamwork and being independent.
Okay.
Teamwork is like a huge part of Danish culture, but they also want you to know that you can do your job and not need to be supervised. They don't want to hold your hand.
Okay.
They want you to have really good communication skills. Normally, I would not call this a soft skill. I would call this a quality.
Okay.
A lot of Danes want to see that you're passionate and that you're driven.
Okay.
Because they want to make sure that you're going to be there for a few years and not just like up and leave the company after 1 or 2 years. So it's really, really important to have that kind. They're really looking for that type of quality in someone most of the time. My other tip I would give is that if you're a student and you're studying, really just don't go to like Walt or Just Eat to do like delivery or be a waitress at a cafe. I've seen a lot of students and students who have made this kind of mistake, and then I work with them and they're like, well, I'm meeting with people who have 1 or 2 years and I don't have any experience. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You should have started already doing a student job already, right?
Yeah.
So they need to start a lot earlier. It's fine to do Walt in the very beginning, but then I would say after 1 or 2 years of studies, start looking for like a student job relevant in your field,
Okay.
and also or an internship.
Which way the companies want to start by testing you maybe for the very first 6 months or a year? It's with a full-time contract, or I don't know.
I think it depends on where you are in your career when you come to Denmark and where you have started. So if you're like a student, like I would say definitely do like an internship for sure, but don't do it where you do 2-3 internships in a row. Like I have worked with a lot of UX designers and graphic designers, and they've made the mistake of doing like 5 internships in a row.
Oh.
And the problem with that is that if you start doing internship to internship to internship to internship,
Yeah.
you already made the set of what your value is, and you're saying that your value is 0.
Yeah.
Like literally in a price sign, because you said that I can do, like, I'm willing to give my work for free. At some point, you need to put boundaries on yourself, and you shouldn't leave yourself to be exploited. Right?
Yeah.
But if you've like come to like, if you have like 12 years of experience in, let's say, being like a finance controller, for example, right? Then I would say you can come here and start and just go for a full-time position. Like just start with that, right? If it's been like over a year and you're still struggling, you can go to the job center and say, look, I would like to do like a 4 or 6 week internship. I know a lot of non-EU citizens have, like, if you're an EU citizen, it's a lot easier. But if they're like, well, you know, you're a non-EU citizen, so you don't have the right, that's not true. You still have that right. They can still place you in somewhere. So you have to, as a non-EU citizen, like really have to push and say, like, look, I would like to do a 4 or 6 week internship somewhere.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And you can do that. But I would also say that, like, I would try to avoid doing an internship as much as possible if you're like already had some years of experience already, because then you're putting yourself at a lower bar. I know, like, I've worked with clients that have been like, they've had like 20 years of experience and they're like, well, I just want to start an entry level. Like, I just need to get somewhere. And I'm like, well, you're going to lower yourself. Like, that's really an issue, right? So then you just need to phrase it and do it a little bit differently. But I always say, like, just try going to the job center and see if you can get, like, because like 4 to 6 weeks isn't like a lot of time. It's just enough to like say like, oh, well, you know, is this the right fit, etc. And it's not like dragging on for like 1 to 3 months. Then it's a problem. But if you do 4 to 6 weeks, it would be totally fine. So I think it just is all dependent on like your situation. Another skill, I was just thinking of a few more soft skills that they're also looking for.
Okay.
Danes also look for people who take initiative and being proactive.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then if you take initiative and being proactive, that's also something seen as positive, because they see that after 1 year, you are, you know, taking the initiative and saying, look, I also want to improve, and I also want to show you, here's what I've been doing, and these are the results, and this is why I feel like there's a promotion. Do you agree or disagree? And let's just have this conversation now. So
basically, the management listen you if you're asking for, I don't know, maybe just reconsider my position. Or
they should. Whether they will is another story.
Okay. Well, how manager, HR manager, or the recruiters or whatever perceive your here in Denmark your volunteer activities? I mean, it's kind of huge thing for the I don't know, the interview process, or
yeah, no, they eat it like candy. They love it. They really do. They love it. It's like that. Like, they really, really do see volunteer experiences. But I always say, like, my advice is that if you're going to do volunteer experience, make sure it's relevant in your field.
Okay.
And make it something interesting. Or at the very least, if it's not, then just show the soft skills and the transferable skills. Okay. So I always say, when you do your internship, not your internship, sorry, if you're doing volunteer, try to be smart with your volunteer and like be selective. Okay. Be strategic in what you decide you want to do with volunteer or being an intern, because volunteered is looked at something very positively. So in that sense, right? And it gives it helps you with your brand or like your personal brand. Yeah. Right, but an internship it has a different type of plus, right? Where it's about like saying, look, I have some experience working in a company, right? So
sure.
It's just about balancing and thinking, what do you feel is best for your background? Every company has like a different interview structure process, but normally in the beginning, every question you're going to be asked is, tell me about yourself. They really want to understand if you're like the right candidate before moving forward. That's quite common. They might ask maybe some behavioral questions, or but that's usually not common to do, but you never know, right? Okay. So, but it's normally, this is the process with skills and competences, understanding your background, etc., right? And then sometimes in bigger companies, the second stage is that you'll do like a personality test and a logic test. Sometimes they'll do a logic test even before the first interview, right? Okay. Or sometimes they'll even do like a scanning call before inviting you to an interview. That's also quite common as well. Like Lego does that. And then once you have that first interview, then there's the second. And if you do like a logic test and personality test, a lot of the time they'll just ask you about they'll just ask you how you feel, how did you feel about the result. They'll talk and say, well, here's the personality test, here's the results.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask you, how did you feel about it? Do you think it's actually right or wrong? And my always advice on this is like, if you feel that the test is wrong, then it's okay to say, yes, I disagree, and this is why. And then if you say agree, then like you would say, I could agree, but then you can delve more on the positive aspects. It's really, really hard to prepare for because the personality test is more about understanding, are you really the right fit for the role in the team, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't do personality tests or logic tests. Sometimes they'll just simply ask like a lot more of these behavioral questions, and then they'll ask you a lot more of these situational kind of questions, or how, like, it's actually like, it is behavioral questions, right? And then and then you use like the STAR method, right? Situation, task, action, result. Sometimes in the first interview or in the call, they'll ask you about like salary. So you already need to prepare for like what salary do you expect?
How about the negotiation?
Yeah.
Is it something that is well seen or permitted, or?
Yeah, it depends. It really just depends a lot of the time, right? So when they ask in the first interview, like in the first round, or even in the call, like what salary do you want?
Yeah.
The reason why they ask for is because they have a budget.
Yeah, sure.
So they just need to know that. And what I normally recommend to try to get around this a little bit is say, well, you can either just leverage being international and say, look, like I've done some research, but I have some sort of idea, but I really don't know. I just moved here in Denmark, but I trust that you'll give me a fair salary according to my work experiences and my education. And if you say that I trust you, that's like a really big thing in Danish culture, because people feel good. People feel good when you say I trust you.
Okay.
And then they're like, and it's it kind of can get around that, but sometimes you can't get around that, and then they'll push for a number, and then you can just say, well, what's your budget? Just be direct about it, because sometimes they will give it to you. Sometimes they won't. But then just be prepared for a number. And then that's why I always say, like, go to the union, because if you are able to go to a union, actually being a part of a union here is tax deductible. And you can't just join a union for the sake of joining it. You have to join the union based on your background. So if you are a marketing person, then you go to HK. For example, right? Or if you're in hospitality, or in construction, then you go to 3F, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just join that, right? So you go based on the field, and then before you even go to the interview, I always say sign up for a union, because you get the first 3 months free, and being part of a union is tax deductible here. Then, like, before you go to the interview, then you can always ask your union, you can send the job ad and the CV and say, hey, I have an interview coming up. Could you recommend to me what number I should give for the salary question, right? Yeah. Usually unions go a bit higher than I would say. Yeah, sometimes they go too high. So you can go a little bit lower, but I wouldn't go that much lower, to be honest. Okay. So, because you also want to make sure that you're paid paid fairly. Right, so
and they provide support very quickly. I mean,
that's why I always say send an email and then call, because normally it says like they'll get back to you in like 2 to 3 business days. But if you have an interview in 2 days, then I would say just send it and then like call them, and then you can get help like this. Really, really quickly. And then once you also get to the negotiation phase, then they can look at your contract to make sure it's legal, because in bigger companies, you're more likely to be able to get a contract in English. Some companies, they won't. You'll be in Danish, right? And of course, you might not understand it.
Sure.
So, and that's all the reason why you have a union, is because they can look and see what's legal and not legal, because how it is by law here is that once you sign a contract, then it's legal. Even if it's an illegal contract, then you've made it legal. You need to make sure that everything is there. And then they can also help you that if they're not in a collective agreement with a company, then they can also then they can advise you about what you can negotiate for.
Okay.
If it's not salary, then because once you have set like a range, then it's really like it is a little bit harder to do once you've already given a number in the beginning, right? So
Sure.
that's why I say it's really crucial to do your preparation, right? And so when it comes, so normally you can negotiate. Sometimes you can negotiate pension,
Okay.
because but it can be a little bit tricky because normally it's set. But you can legally, I think in Denmark, you can pay up to 15%. You're not allowed to pay more. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty certain of that. But it's quite common where a company will pay between 3 to 8%, and then you can cover the rest of that.
Okay.
And so you can try to negotiate and say, well, could you cover, like, if they're covering 3%, you're just like, well, can you cover 5?
Exactly.
Right, for example, right? They might argue, well, this is standard, and it might be a little bit tough, but you can always try, right?
Okay.
Another thing is about getting, like, paid lunch, because it's usually lunch is unpaid here.
Okay. So there's no canteen?
No, there is a canteen, but it's usually, it's about the time.
Okay.
So 30 minutes you pay out of your own time.
Okay.
So you're not paid to eat.
Ooh, okay.
So in that time frame, right? So it's usually like you have a 30-minute lunch, so you're not paid for that 30 minutes of time to eat.
Yeah, sure.
Right? But you can negotiate trying to get that included in your hours. Sometimes you can also negotiate whether they pay for your lunch, because, for example, if they do have a canteen, then maybe, and if they have a card, then maybe you can say, well, maybe you can do like, maybe they can put in like 500 krona a month or something like this onto the card, right? Or that, where they pay for your lunch. That's usually quite uncommon, but I always say just, you can try. I've had a few clients that have been successful with doing that. Also negotiating maternity or paternity leave.
Okay.
You can do that, but I would usually be a little bit careful in doing it. But you can't. It is by law. It's equal here. You get, oh my God, how many weeks? I think it's 52 weeks. I have to look into it.
Okay.
It is a lot that you I think it's 52 weeks per person. Well, I have to look actually, but it's
not for family. I mean, just for one person.
Yeah, I think it's one person. I would have to double check that.
Okay.
But it's you get, and it has to be split equally. Actually, that's a new law that was passed in the last year, that it has the maternity and paternity have to be split equally. So I think it's 52 and 52 in this, right? And both parents have the right for the first 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that's like both at that time you both parents take off. So you can also negotiate having longer. Sometimes also it's a very new thing that's been happening in the last year as well, where there's a big new initiative of having unlimited child sick days.
Okay.
So you're paid when your child is sick. So because this is a new trend, and if it's not there, and if you have children, then or want children.
But you just stay at home and taking care of them, or you have the possibility to stay at home and work remotely?
You stay at home and take care of the kids.
Okay.
You don't work.
Okay.
No, you don't work. So that's also and only very few companies I know do this. Actually, like Dansk Commodities, Norlys. Oh, there was another company in Copenhagen, I can't remember, but at least I know those two, and I know there's a few more companies that have unlimited child sick days, where you're paid to take care of the kids, not working remotely. I know some people
just
make that
home,
stay home and taking care of the kids, and trying to go for unlimited sick days. Or because it's quite common, what's more common is that one parent takes one child first day, the next parent takes the second day, and then the third day you find an alternative. But if they don't want to do unlimited child sick days, then you can try to increase those days at a time.
Okay.
So say, well, then maybe there's like 2 days or something. Maybe you can save the first 2 days in the contract, right?
Okay.
You can also do that as well, or at least try. I'm not sure if it's been approved or not, but I think it might be. Also, what's new, I know, by EU law, that was a huge uproar in Denmark, is to track your hours. That was not common before.
Okay.
And there was because it was just about trust and like, oh, I trust that you're going to fulfill the 37 hours. But now EU law has now stated that all companies in the EU, you have to track your hours.
Okay.
Or it's kind of like a clock in or punch in, or like use an Excel spreadsheet, or use a clockifier, a different system to say how many
it's
hours
not
you
something
work.
automated. It's just like
No.
you go with an Excel or whatever file.
Yeah, or
Okay.
or however the company, whatever system the company uses to
Okay, yeah,
say
sure.
how many hours you
Yeah.
worked that week, right?
Because differently, since now, it's just like, okay, I trust you. You work that kind of amount of hour.
Before then, yeah, before this EU law, that was how
Yeah,
it was. Is
okay.
that you're like, yeah? I think people take it very loosely here.
Okay.
They don't take it that seriously. It's
Ah,
just
yeah,
like
okay.
because people are just not used to it, and so then bosses are like, just put it in, like whatever.
yeah,
It's
okay.
but they, of course, like if you break that trust, and if you're like doing less, or if you, because what's more important to them is like, do you do your tasks? Like, have
Yeah,
you
sure.
done, like, have you met the goals and the
No,
deadlines?
yeah.
And
The
if you
quality
don't,
rather than the quantity.
yeah, and if you don't do it, then it might raise some suspicion.
Do you recommend to start learning the language even before arriving here?
Yeah, that's what I did.
How long before?
I say as soon as you know that you want to come to Denmark, you just start as soon as possible. If you know, like if you come here and say, well, I don't have a job, like you can then, of course, you can come and you can start, and once you have your CPR number, then you can get these free Danish courses, right? But I would say even before that, like you can just go on Duolingo and like YouTube. You can listen to Danish with English subtitles or whatever language.
Okay,
as well.
so on your own.
You can also do it on your own as
Okay.
well. So like, or do private. It's about how you. I always say just find a way to make it work based on your budget, because that's the only way to show Danish employers that you're willing to make the effort to really want to be here in the long run, that you're not just going to up and leave after 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
So, and language is that key or that door front to get in. So that's why I just say just start as soon as possible. Is it easy to get your previous qualifications recognized? Is that what you're
exactly,
asking?
more or less, yeah.
Okay. So, no, again, if you're an EU citizen, not a problem.
Yeah.
It's recognized here,
Sure.
no issue.
Sure.
If you're a non-EU citizen, that's another issue. So I always say it depends on where you're from and your background. I've had a lot of Indian clients in the last. I've had a lot of Indian clients, and I remember when I first started, a lot of the times they got rejected because they said they didn't have like a Danish education. Okay. So what I always recommend that you do if you're a non-EU citizen is you can go to the Ministry of Education in Denmark. It's absolutely free. You can fill out a form and say, here's, like, you send official copies. You don't send the originals. Official copies of your diplomas and your transcripts.
Oh, okay.
And then you say, these are the jobs I want to go for. And then it takes a few months to process. Yeah. And then you can get it approved. And that usually helps in an employer not saying that, you know, we reject you because you don't have a Danish education. Because once it's recognized by the Ministry of Education and you mention it in your CV and put in parentheses, recognized by the Ministry of Education, then in Denmark, then they can't say that. Right? So that's why I say, like, just like that's the best route to do, and it doesn't cost you anything to do. Like it's you only pay for postage, like literally. The only thing that you might have to pay for is maybe if you need to do translations, or you need to hire a translator to do that. So I always say that you should, like, when you go home or before coming to Denmark, really make sure to plan accordingly, like, or at least before coming, like, or even with your spouse. Before, like if you're coming with your spouse and they got a job, like that would be the first thing to do, because that can take some time to get that processed. So
let's try to explore a little bit more the differences that could emerge between locals and expats. There are some kind of discriminations. I mean, not just talking about the racism or whatever, also about the salary or the conditions. Do you perceive some kind of differences between a contract to another? Or
I don't really quite understand the question.
discrimination, it means that from the culture, from ethnies, from whatever, I don't know, do you heard any kind of stories like that?
Well, I mean, I've had experiences
Okay.
as well. I've had positive and negative. I think
Okay.
it really just depends on how, like, if the company or if that person has had any intercultural communications training or interaction with internationals before, right? So that's why I always say to get a union to make sure that you're protected. That's also that's why I say with the union is that it's kind of like buying house insurance, because once you have once your house goes on fire, right, you're protected, right? If you buy the insurance afterward, then then it's too late. It's the same with the union. So really make sure that you get that before that type of protection, and it's whether you're a non-EU or EU citizen, right? And that's not different from ACASA. ACASA has different rules. Union, you can, once you have a CPR, you can just get that help if you need to, right? So that's why you join the union, is that the reason why you do is to make sure that you get the same salary. I even say this as well, is that there's huge debates in Denmark between salaries you get between men and women. As well. And there's a lot of initiative, and there's a lot of initiative with DEI right now, especially with the politics that are going on in the United States. I think Denmark is starting to wake up. They're like, oh shoot, if United States, because the American values has always been about DEI policies, diversity, equity, inclusion, right? So, and now that the government has said that they're getting rid of these policies, right, within their own government, and companies and so on. Sorry. Then I feel what I'm seeing a lot in Denmark is because now that United States has made this move, Denmark is like, oh shoot, we actually have to set an example now, and we have to be better. Because everyone's angry at what's going on in the United States, at least in Europe right now. So I think, because of a lot of the political push, I really think that the politics that are happening in the United States is helping Denmark become better, because they're like, well, we need to now set example and precedence. If the United States isn't going to be leading the example or leading charge, we have to now. So there's a lot of movement of this, and I think especially with women, there's a lot of talk about it, and I think it is quite. I would still say that when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, I would say definitely it's better here for women than in a lot of other countries in the world, right? But I mean, there's still progress to be made, as always, right? And same with how things are in the workplace, and I do see it becoming better, and there's a lot of initiatives about also with intercultural communication. It's going slowly, but I think it is going in the right direction now. If you have a really good hiring manager, they will help you grow to get to where you want to be, even if you don't stay in the company to do that. They will. They will help you, right? So it really just depends on hiring manager, the budget, and how the company is growing. So.
But it's well seen if someone starts to ask for a promotion, or it is something that's basically 100% of the time it has to come from the top.
So normally with corporations, you usually have a yearly review. And you talk about it, right? And then that's the time you come up and talk about whether to have a promotion or not. Or where you do and also in corporations, that's the time where you also do salary review as well. Not only feedback of performance, but also that's the time to do salary review. So I always say leave it to that. You can't just bring it up out of the blue normally, right? But if it's a startup or scale up, and you don't have these kind of yearly reviews, then I would always recommend that after 1 year, talk to them and just have a meeting and say, I would take the initiative to take feedback.
What could be the difficulties for adapting once entered in the new role in the job market? for adapting to the new culture? I mean, the working culture for a foreigner.
I mean, work-life balance is great. I really love the culture of work-life balance here, but the danger of work-life balance is that Danes, they work, they go, or it's, maybe I shouldn't say Danes. I should say the culture.
Yeah.
The culture is that you work, you go home, and and you go to your family or activities, and you really separate your work from your personal life.
Yeah.
So because of this, and also because the social groups have been already instilled since you're small. Like you stick to your friends from daycare. Like a lot of Danes have like friends from when they're really small to high school to college, and they already have their social groups formed. So then because of that, it could be really, really difficult for Danes to, it could be really difficult for internationals to meet Danes, and that can be a challenge. So that's my advice, is that if you want to make friends and really try to feel belonging, like you just, again, it's about taking initiative, taking it into your own hands, just trying to make friends, and it doesn't matter to you whether it's for Danes or internationals, like just take different courses, like go to clubs, find activities that you like to do, because maybe there are some people who are there, or just like take the initiative to, just start with, like bringing cookies or cake to the workplace, because Danes love cake.
Yeah,
like
I know.
they do. They bring it all the time to work, and I'm like, if you bring a cake, that's like a great, or like morning buns, for example, like bread.
Yeah.
They love that. So that's a really good warmer. You do this after some time, and then hopefully they'll warm up. It could take a little time, but I think the biggest culture shock for me was how you do like the idea of like trust and business and doing business as well here. I think honestly it's trust, because in the United States, trust is a really like, it's the idea that you have to earn trust.
Okay.
And trust has to be earned, whereas in Denmark it's given.
Okay, yeah.
But in business, it's not like that. It's shadowed and used as a forefront to say, oh yeah, we totally trust and we can totally work together. But then you can, like, business is business, and like business is just ruthless no matter where you are. It can be used as a forefront. So that's why I always say to internationals, if you're doing business, like, yes, you can do collaborations and like talk to people who are competitors and stuff like this, but I would always say still keep your cards close.
Okay.
Because you can't, like, it's really hard to know, like, if you don't know them very well, it's about trust, right? So yeah, so they really much leverage, like, even though in Denmark everyone is like, oh yeah, we're a very trusting culture, it is very much so on a social level, and that's absolutely great. Like I can leave, like one time I was at a cafe and I left my phone on accident, and it was like still there. And I was like really shocked by that, because in the United States it'd be gone.
Yeah, sure.
like this, maybe in other countries as well, but it's really rare for like, there is a really big trust like culture, and I think that was a big shock for me as well. Jante Law is a philosophy that was popularized by a famous book in the earliest 20th century, but but it was always still part of the culture. It just was never written about so much.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the idea of not boasting or bragging. You're not. You're not. They believe it's the idea or philosophy that you're nothing special. That you're not unique.
Yeah.
And that you can't stand. Like, for example, it would be really weird culturally to wear like the color hot pink. Or like because you don't want to, because you don't see, you probably notice this, like if you're in the street, you don't see a lot of bright colors.
No, yeah.
It's like gray and dark, because it's about blending in, because you're not special. But also what's interesting is that Jante Law is also considered a negative part of Danish culture, and a lot of Danes would say, well, Jante Law doesn't apply, we don't like it. The majority would say that they really don't like Jante Law, and that they don't believe in Jante Law. But it is so ingrained unconsciously in the system that they don't realize it a lot of the times. Yeah. So That's what I would also say when it comes to job searching is that what's really difficult, especially when you do like your LinkedIn profile or CV or letter, is that you need to mention your achievements, but you have to balance that and about your achievements and not breaking into law. And that's so difficult to do.
Oh, yeah, I see.
So difficult. So that's why I always say focus it on a teamwork environment.
Okay.
And focus it about the team, because then it's like a little bit less, a little bit, but you can still say I helped these we achieved these kind of results with my team and doing this and this and this, and I helped doing this, and because of dividing these tasks we we achieved growth by this amount and stuff, right, together, something like that. So you have to be very, very careful with how you word things, right? I still think you can always focus about yourself. Just never, I would never do awards like top employee of the year, because in Denmark they don't care. They really don't. It depends, but it depends on the industry. Like if you're like at Rema, for example, like the grocery stores, you'll see employee of the year in the grocery store, right? Yeah. But it would never be in the you would never see that like at Maersk or like the bigger corporations or startups or scale-ups, right? But it's more like if you're working in maybe if like in a grocery store, or I have never seen it in restaurants. I've only seen it in grocery stores in Denmark, actually, to be quite honest. So, but I think it's really like when you're in this process of job searching, it's really being careful about these Danish cultural codes and wording and so on. So that's just my honest advice, is understand the culture behind job searching, because it is difficult, and that's why I say it's not easy. It's not and if someone says that you can get with me you can get a job in 3 months, it really depends on the market, your industry, when you start applying. You can't I've had clients that have gotten jobs within 3 months. I've had clients that took 6 months. I've had some that took 8 months. It really just depends, and it's also about if you do it effectively, right? And if you take the methods effectively as well. So but that's my advice.